Hi everyone. Today we're going to present our analysis of this study. This study is called Teaching Foreign Languages at the EU Diversity, Exploring Paths Towards Decoloniality and Critical Interculturality. We are Carmen Vargas and Angie Paola Mitis. The agenda is a context, then how it was implemented, this course, our analysis, after that, how could the course be improved? And finally, some conclusions. This study was conducted by 3 professors from School of Languages at the University of Antioquia. They are Janet Ortiz, Fabio Arizmendi, and Paula Londoño. Where in Medellin, the modality was virtual due to COVID-19. Type of school was School of Languages. It means public university, and type of classroom, it was a teacher professional development program, and the participants were 17 teachers of English, French, and other languages. They use action research following the cyclical process of planning, action, observation, and reflection. The purpose of this lesson or study is basically explore critical interculturality with teachers by promoting, reflecting on their practices, and developing more equitable teaching approaches in their classroom. That's the purpose. And to gather data, these professors use multiple tools. For example, an initial survey to collect demographic information, then an individual interview of the course to understand their perceptions. Another one was a session recording to analyze classroom interactions. Also 3 virtual forums where teachers reflected on principal topics. And a final didactic unit plan developed by the participants. Please, the next slide. Well, I would like to quickly show you the demographic information. As I already said, there were 17 foreign language teachers from the School of Languages, all native Spanish speakers, and with diverse academic and professional background, right? So in the picture, we can see, for example, the origin. Most of them are from the Andean region, but also there are professors from Atlantic and Pacific region. Another characteristic is languages. For example, most of them teach English, but also there are professors teaching French, Japanese, Portuguese, and Spanish as foreign languages. And finally, they worked in different university programs like PIFLE, PIA, PNJ, Multilingua, etc. And that's all. It's a diverse and interesting group. So now Carmen is going to explain in more detail how it was implemented, this course. Go ahead, Carmen.
Well, good afternoon. I'm going to talk about the course implementation. The course titled Teaching Foreign Languages in EU Diversity was part of a research project called Languages for Continuity, a proposal from Critical Interculturality. And this course was conducted virtually from October to December 2020 and lasted 40 hours. The course structure was divided into 2 modules and a final project. The first module, called Diversity in Higher Education, explored diversity in Colombia and in the university, presented previous research on foreign language learning among ethnic communities, included guest speakers, a university professor, and an indigenous student, promoting ancestral languages and intercultural dialogue. And during this module, teachers designed a tool to identify and highlight diversity in their classrooms. The second module, called Interculturality in Foreign Language Teaching, allowed to discuss teachers' perspectives on culture and interculturality, introduce European and Latin American models of interculturality with a strong emphasis on critical interculturality, and also explored concepts such as culture, decoloniality, diversity, and intercultural dialogue. As the final activity, participants worked in groups to design a didactic unit incorporating intercultural perspectives. This project allowed them to apply their reflections and discussions in a practical way. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. The final projects showed a clear effort to encourage student reflection on their own contexts and identities. We bring here two examples where we can observe that the teachers integrated intercultural questions throughout the unit, focusing not just on knowledge of other cultures, but also on values and awareness. For example, in a level 3 French course, teachers adapted a lesson on food by incorporating discussion questions to challenge stereotypes about Colombian and French cuisine. They encouraged students to explore cultural diversity, food-related social issues, and connections between local and global perspectives. Next slide, please. In an English course, another group focused on exploring the histories behind places of the University of Antioquia rather than just describing them. This approach helps the students engage critically with their surroundings and reflect on their relationships with these spaces.
Well, this is our analysis. The question is, the intervention can be considered a good example of that approach or not, and why? So after analyzing this course and reading the theoretical text titled Critical Interculturality, a Path for English Teacher in Training by Carlos Granado Beltrán, we can say that this course implemented at School of Languages is a good example of this approach. Why? Because this course takes into account the concept of critical interculturality proposed by him, right? So, however, I would like to explain why this course is a good example of this approach. So I'm going to talk about 6 aspects. The first one is critical interculturality. Well, we consider that this course promoted cultural, linguistic, and identity diversity and education. But what is critical interculturality? Well, according to Walsh, critical interculturality is to challenge inequality and transform structure through diverse thinking and learning, right? So, but also Granado says that interculturality is related to processes of struggle, power, and decoloniality, right? So this aspect we can see in the course. For example, in the second module, as Carmen already said, there was a deeper exploration of the Latin American interculturality proposal, covering concepts such as culture, diversity, decoloniality, and intercultural dialogue, right? So also Carmen, Carmen already said. too. There was a final project, right, which was a group task plan, a didactic unit for the different programs like PIFLE, Multilingual, etc. But these didactic units from an intercultural approach. So for this reason, we think is this aspect, critical interculturality, is present in this study. The second one is coloniality. According to Granado Beltrán, coloniality is the naturalization of territorial, racial, cultural, and epistemic hierarchies, and epistemic hierarchies. But also, he said that coloniality impacts the beliefs of students and teachers, leading to self-criticism about their accent, for example, in English, or their own accent, right? So, and also frustration with some teaching methods. In this study, Arizmendi and the colleagues highlight that at the University of Antioquia, English is given like a privileged status. For example, it's like a graduation requirement. So sidelining other foreign or indigenous languages, right? So this is like this could be like a coloniality aspect present in this university. So also we consider this concept coloniality is taken into account in this course. For example, in the one of the sessions, the participants discussed and this in groups the manifestation of this phenomenon, but in the teaching processes. And so they said, for example, the importation of the European or American test doesn't reflect in Latin American realities. It's like we live in Colombia, so why do we use this European or American test? So it's like, so for this reason, we consider coloniality is present in this course. So next slide, please. Well, the third one is the coloniality perspective in language teaching, right? So, well, according to Mignolo, the colonial thinking question modernity's Eurocentric bias, right? So we consider this course foster critique and reflection through discussion, dialogues, and course topics. But also Granados talk about the colonial turn. He said that the colonial turn critiques modernity from the perspective of former colonies, right? But we can see this aspect in the course, for example, especially in the unit creation, because the participants try to incorporate a more decolonial and critical perspective through activities, topics, and questions, like the table Carmen showed. Yes, the table of different questions in Spanish and English. So all these activities are related to the coloniality and language teaching. So the next one is identity. ethnic, cultural, and social linguistic diversity. While the course stresses the importance of reflecting on identity, actually this concept identity is a very important one of the course. But also, according to Granados, culture has been like a part of the language teaching, but like in a superficial way. So, however, he said like recently the focus in how shifted to intercultural communication. So he said, okay, cultural is one of the most important aspects in the critical interculturality, and it's important to see the relevance in these processes, in the language teaching processes. So, okay, this aspect we can see in the module 1, yes, diversity in Colombia, and the University of Antioquia, sorry, was discussed, right? And actually, if do you remember, in this module, an indigenous student was invited to share her work promoting ancestral language, right? So that's a good, important thing in this process of critical interculturality. And another thing, it was also interesting to see that the fall course, and discussion were in Spanish. Why? Because Arismendi and colleagues said this promote equal participation. So this aspect is also present in this course. So next slide, please. Well, the next one is critical reflection. The didactic unit creation involves critical questioning and reflection from both teacher and student. But also Granado says teacher must be critical of the language processes, right? So this critical reflection we can note in the final interviews. For example, final interviews highlighted tension and experiments, and these promoting social cultural exchange and critical awareness. And this characteristic, or these characteristics are related to critical reflection. And so for that reason, we consider this aspect is present in this course. And finally, we have power relations. Granado talk about this concept, and he said that unfortunately the power relations established during the historical experience of colonial submission have implication for the current lives of the people that were colonized, right? So it's like this relation between people and the powers on the society. But so this aspect we can see in the, for example, in the participants' note in interviews that after exploring interculturality and power relations, a fairer society requires fostering honest dialogue and creating inclusive, diverse, and equitable classes that extend beyond the linguistic component. It means like the course is not like related to teach a topic, but also teach, for example, the contextualization of this topic, the historical experiences of this topic, and yes, that's basically the power relation is the concept of power relation is about. So that's it.
Well, let's continue with how the lesson or the course in this case could be improved to follow the approach more closely. Here we outline the key actions we consider essential for a course on decoloniality and interculturality to align with this approach. While many of these actions were implemented in the course presented, we highlight them because along with our additional proposals, they can further enhance the course's effectiveness in achieving its objective. The first one is that teachers must have the necessary tools to help the students recognize their own knowledge and strengths as meaningful contributions to their learning process. This fosters an inclusive and participatory classroom environment where students learn not only from the teacher, but also from one another. The next one is that a critical intercultural approach requires teachers to explore how personal stories, both their own and also their students, are connected to the broader narratives of their city and local realities. By making these connections, students can better understand their place in history and how their identities are shaped by social, cultural, and political contexts. The next one is that teachers should engage their students in ongoing reflection on how they contribute to citizenship building through inclusion, equity, and diversity. This means recognizing and valuing different voices, perspectives, and experiences, while also questioning dominant narratives that may exclude or marginalize certain groups. Next slide, please. The next action to be considered in a course like this is that teachers must guide students in analyzing how other cultures and languages interact with, influence, or sometimes marginalize their own. This critical awareness helps students understand power dynamics in language and culture, as well as the impact of globalization, colonization, and social inequalities on their linguistic and cultural identities. The next one is that teachers should create and share activities that prioritize local knowledge and experiences. This includes valuing community-based knowledge production, which often remains outside traditional academic frameworks. By doing so, teachers challenge the Eurocentric and colonial perspectives that dominate many curricula. And the last one is that the colonial pedagogy should involve teachers designing curricula and materials collaboratively with students. This also challenges the traditional top-down approach to education and allows for the incorporation of students' perspectives, languages, and cultural practices into their learning process.
Well, finally, we continue with the conclusions. So first, in conclusion, this study challenges traditional language teaching approaches by fostering a more inclusive and intercultural perspective in the classroom. And also the course provided teachers with a space for reflection and transformation, encouraging them to rethink their practices and create more equitable learning environments. And their project demonstrated how interculturality can be meaningfully integrated into language education, promoting critical thinking, self-awareness, and a deeper appreciation of diversity. And a course on decoloniality and interculturality must go beyond theoretical discussion and equip teachers with practical strategies to reshape their classroom by promoting active participation, critical reflection, and collaborative knowledge production. Such courses empower education to create inclusive, culturally relevant, and socially just learning environments.
And finally, and this is important, the use of critical interculturality as a pedagogical tool to decolonize teaching practices in language teacher training programs has not yet been explored in the way it should. However, we believe it is essential to address topics such as interculturality, diversity, and critical reflection in the teaching and learning processes of foreign languages. Then, with courses as the one we presented, teachers could understand and incorporate critical interculturality for constructing equity and identity within both the educational and social context. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much.